Okay, you're going live. யாராவது கன்ஃபார்ம் பண்ணுங்க எனக்கு லைவ்ல வருதுன்னு.
எனக்கு வந்துச்சு.
I also got it.
Okay.
Yep.
You're able to.
You can start. You need to change your camera.
உன்னோட okay.
Excellent. Super. Yep. எல்லாரும் மியூட் பண்ணிக்கோ. Okay.
Good morning, Muthu.
Vanakkam. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this Annamalai University Alumni Association live streaming shows that we have been conducting every month. I would like to welcome Arun Murray at this point in time.
Good morning, Muthu.
Good morning, Arun.
Excellent, excellent. It's
எப்படி இருக்க? நல்லா இருக்கியா?
awesome, awesome.
எக்ஸலண்ட். நான் இந்த வாரம் எக்ஸலண்டா ஒரு விஷயம் பார்க்க வேண்டியிருக்கு. ஸோ என்ன என்ன இந்த வாரத்துக்கான ஸ்பெஷல் ஆர் இந்த மாசத்துக்கான
ஸ்பெஷல் இஸ் Vaitheeswarankoil to Valley or Silicon Valley. As you know, since the start of the Alumni Association, we have been having series of talks by illustrious alumni. And last month we met with Dr. Venkat Kasturi from NASA scientist, who is investigating the depths of the seas to the deep space for the microbes.
That is
and
true.
This year in the Entrepreneurs Spotlight series, we are meeting with Subbu Meyyappan.
Okay.
I'll probably will start with a formal bio of Subbu.
Sure.
And then I will ask you to introduce him personally, as you know him since college days.
Definitely.
Is that okay?
Go for it.
Awesome. So Subbu Meyyappan is a leader in wireless telecom with over 25 years of entrepreneurial and technology development experience. He's a serial entrepreneur, an inventor, and an author. Currently, he is the founder and CEO of EC Site, which is helping automating and transforming the telecom industry in the digital era. Subbu previously co-founded NextNav in 2009, an indoor location company. We'll know more about it during today in our session. Before NextNav, he was a principal engineer at Qualcomm and Ergo Network, and before that he was at Cisco and Philips Semiconductor and VLSI's technology areas. Subbu has over 30 US patents issued on his name and several more pending. I understand 50 plus. He has also written several technical publications and spoken at industry and academic conferences. And he also taught graduate level courses at Arizona State University and been in several industry standard committees. He's from 1994 E&I batch of our university and has dual masters in electrical engineering from Stanford and Tennessee Tech. Subbu, a native of Chettinad, was born and calls Vaitheeswarankoil as his home. And his parents have lived in Vaitheeswarankoil for the past 50 years. And he, like many people who's busy, he's also been busy on the non-profit side. He has co-founded a non-profit organization called Vetrivail.org that is helping to take the world-class education to the masses by converting the Khan Academy videos Indian regional languages. So it's our pleasure to invite and welcome from Subbu Muthu. I would like you to introduce him on a personal level. That's on the professional level.
I'll be happy to definitely do that. I believe he's from 93.
93.
Yeah,
Okay.
END.
Sir.
E&I,
So-
yeah, 93 E&I.
Right.
93,
I've known Subbu as, from the college days. Very simple, passionate, very caring and loving, attached person. That's how I know him. But let's welcome Subbu and then take it from there.
Yeah.
Hey,
Vanakkam.
Vanakkam,
Yeah,
Subbu.
thank you. Thanks for that lovely introduction, Arun and Muthu. I've known Muthu from the college days, so thank you for that introduction and this opportunity as well to speak. So, I'm happy to be here.
Subbu, எனக்கு வந்து காலேஜ் டேஸ்ல ரொம்ப நல்லா தெரியும். we interacted in so many activities together. அதுக்கப்புறம் என்னாச்சுன்னா அருண், some things we need to talk about it. Very very focused, நல்லா படிக்கிற பையன், அவ்வளவுதான் சாதாரணமா தெரியும். Right? Later I came to know he is the gold medalist. So it wasn't surprising. Very simple person. ஆனா நம்ம இந்த மாதிரிலாம் படிக்கிற பசங்களை பழம் அப்படிம்போம். அந்த மாதிரியும் இல்ல. He's not a பழம். Very very casual guy. ஜாலியா இருக்கும், அப்படிதான் இருந்தோம். But one thing surprised me, that he is a train student. Right? Most of the time வந்து Vaitheeswarankoil இருந்து ட்ரெயின்ல வந்துட்டு இன்ஜினியரிங் காலேஜ் பக்கத்துல இருக்கு, he will attend and he will go back. இப்போ வரைக்கும் ரொம்ப நாளுக்கு தெரிஞ்சது, he has never gone beyond administration building. அட்மினியை தாண்டி போனதே இல்லை. ஏன் அட்மினிக்கு போனோம்னா ஃபீஸ் கட்ட வேண்டியிருக்கும், அதுக்காக போயிருப்பேன், அவ்வளவுதான். அதுக்கப்புறம் எனக்கு எதுவும் தெரியாது. There is a greener side of that things happening on the other side. So அது வந்து தெரியாம இருந்திருக்கு. தெரியாம இல்ல, பட் தேவையில்லாம இருந்திருக்கு.
Muthu, I think there is some echo. Can you mute others?
Oh, we can.
மாதவன் சாரோட இதுல இருந்து வருது.
அப்படியா? ஓகே, மியூட் பண்ணிக்கோ. So அப்படி தெரிஞ்ச சுப்பு, at some point in time I lost touch, right? I completely lost touch. So ஒரு நாள் இங்க வந்து சான் பிரான்சிஸ்கோ பே ஏரியால வந்து ஒரு பே டு பிரேக்கர்ஸ் ரன் பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கேன். நமக்கா சரி எப்படி உடம்பு ஓடுதா இல்லையான்னு டெஸ்ட் பண்ணலாமே அப்படின்னு சொல்லி ஓடி ரன் பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கேன். திடீர்னு பக்கத்துல பார்த்தேன் யாரோ தெரிஞ்ச ஃபேஸ். ஏய் எப்படி இருக்க அப்படின்னு, இங்க எப்படி இருக்கீங்க அப்படின்னு 2 பேரும் பேச ஆரம்பிச்சோம். I was ஒரு few minutes கூட ரன் பண்ணிட்டு பேசிட்டே போனோம். I think you were in Stanford at that point in time.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
அதுக்கப்புறம் we have been in touch in lot of activities, but அந்த ஒரு several years of gap, I have no idea what happened, and all we see is here, right? Okay, Subbu Meyyappan here at Stanford, அப்படிதான் தெரியும். Why don't you start அந்த ஒரு journey of 18 years நீ என்ன பண்ண, என்னெல்லாம் எப்படி லைஃப் இருந்தது அப்படின்னு பேசினா கொஞ்சம் நல்லா இருக்கும்னு நினைக்கிறேன்.
Yeah, கண்டிப்பா. Thanks, Muthu. I remember that Bay to Breakersல நானும் என் ஒய்ஃபும் we were running up the hill. அப்போ பார்த்தா அந்த பக்கம் முத்து ஓடிட்டு இருந்தாரு. And also I did not know that Muthu is also running a radio show. Even when I was at Stanford, Muthu was running a radio show, and they used to always say Muthu and Meena. The voice looking, you're familiar இருக்குன்னு நினைச்சிட்டு இருந்தேன், but I didn't realize it was this Muthu. So it's a great re-meet, and yeah, so this is great. So sure. Starting train சொன்னீங்க, ரொம்ப பிரியமான நினைவுகள் அதெல்லாம். காலையில 6:30 மணிக்கு எந்திரிச்சு, அதுக்கு முன்னாடி எங்க அம்மா எந்திரிச்சு எல்லாம் பிரேக்ஃபாஸ்ட் எல்லாம் பண்ணி லஞ்ச் பண்ணி எல்லாம் கட்டி கொடுத்து அங்கேருந்து ட்ரெயினுக்கு அவசரமா கொண்டு வந்து எங்க அப்பா ட்ராப் பண்ணுவாங்க. And and train used to be fun. A lot of friends used to come from Sigari, Mayaram, and we used to all sit together and chat. And நிறைய விஷயங்கள் அங்க வந்து it's a sort of both on the way in, it gets you into the mold of going to college, and then when you also on the way back, it gets you sort of to unwind, right, during that time. So because you can't sit there and study and stuff like that, people are always talking. So unwind பண்ணி அப்புறம் வீட்டுக்கு வந்துட்டு படிக்கிற மாதிரி இருக்கும். So it's a good time there on the train. People always used to talk about how T. Rajendra also used to be on the same train as well.
Same train, huh?
Right. அதனால நீங்க சொன்ன மாதிரி எனக்கு வந்து சாஸ்திரி ஹாலுக்கு தாண்டி போறதுக்கான நேரமே கிடையாது இதுக்கும். Just காலைல 6:30க்கு வந்துட்டு 4:30 train திரும்பி, so just head back. Right. It was long days for us, starting from early days. So sometimes the difficult time இருக்கும் in the sense, I want to stay back in the lab and stuff like that, and அப்போல்லாம் வந்து because of the train limitations or bus limitations, I used to find it difficult, but manage that through. அப்புறம் லாஸ்ட் 2 years we stayed in room எடுத்து அங்கே அக்ஷயாக்கு ஏத்தாப்புல ஒரு ரூம் எடுத்து நானும் என் 4 friends we stayed together, and we used to go there, and weekend மட்டும் வீட்டுக்கு போயிட்டு வருவோம். So that's a really good time at Annamalai that I had. A lot of learning for me at Annamalai. There's people talk about facilities and this and that, but I had really beautiful resources for me to access, which was the teachers. Some teachers, to call out, Ramurthy sir, he used to teach microprocessor. அவர் செல்லமலரும் கோயங்கான்னு சொல்லுவாங்க. ஸோ ராமூர்த்தி சார், அதுக்கப்புறம் லேட் ப்ரொஃபஸர் MC Vaidhelingam. He was a big inspiration for me, and very encouraging. He would give me private time to talk and tell me, Subbu, you need to do these things better and stuff like that. So those are all very useful for me. From DSK sir was always very friendly and encouraging me. SPN sir taught me a lot of things, right? The passion that he had for teaching. So I learned a lot from them, right? Whether in class or outside of class. Then I had a fantastic group of friends who also I hung out with. So they all used to help me keep the focus, and they were all we were all, let's say, I wouldn't say first benchers necessarily, but the general motivation is just like how you're in a group which has a common motivation to study well, to do the right things. So adu madri group. So and some of them as well, Muthu, Karthi, Ajarali, Ranganathan, Vidyashankar, Mahesh, Prakash, Pradhiswaran, Nachi. So we were all the 6 or 7 of us who used to hang out together, and had a good enjoyable experience for us. For me at Annamalai. So I graduate பண்ணி முடிச்சிட்டு நீங்க சொன்ன மாதிரி எனக்கு I got an on-campus job with Aerochem or project. It was a tie-up between MRL, which is Manali Refineries, and SPIC at that time as an instrumentation engineer. So and then Adum was a fantastic experience. The company hadn't started, so it was a startup at that time, and the company hadn't started. It was supposed to be a 1,000 crore project to build out a big petrochemical plant. So they hadn't found a space. They were thinking it was going to be based off of Chennai and Manali, and they started all these things, and they hired us as trainees. So ஒரு வருஷம் வந்து ஒரு மாசம் ஒரு refinery-ல, இன்னொரு மாசம் இன்னொரு refinery-ல. So we went all over the India from one refinery to another, learning about all of those different things, and that was also a very cultural and a discipline experience for me. Because obviously factories, you have to be very disciplined, and while I was doing that, I used to visit Annamalai, and Professor Vaidhelingam, he used to say, higher studies adha pursue pannunga அப்படினு சொல்லிட்டு. So I wrote my GRE, and then I applied to Tennessee Tech, and I got in with full scholarship. So then it was a matter of convincing my parents, who when உங்களுக்குலாம் தெரியும், right? +2 முடிச்சுட்டு we applied to different colleges, which is BITS and stuff like that, and I applied and I got in, but my parents said, oh no, we won't send you that far. And they lived in Vaitheeswarankoil, and I there's not good schools in Vaitheeswarankoil, so I வந்து boarding school தான் mostly இருந்தேன். எங்க சித்தி வீட்டில் போர்டிங் ஸ்கூல்ல எங்க எல்லாமே இருந்தேன். So they wouldn't allow me to go anywhere outside of outside of Chidambaram. They said, college years are the formative years, and essentially, if you look at it, right? Yeah, that I'll do the right things and very mature and stuff like that. And as you expect any parent of a teenager, and we're all thinking about that at this age now on how our kids are, and now you can relate to that. And so when I said I wanted to go to the US to study, they liked the idea that I'm going abroad to study and pursue higher things in life, but they were really nervous. Right? There's all kinds of stories coming around on what happens to people who go abroad. They never come back. They do this, they do that. So they're convinced பண்ணிட்டு, and my professor also helped with that. And so then I decided to come to the US and do my master's in Tennessee Tech. So Tennessee Techல படிச்சுட்டு I got it was a good time, and I learned a lot. அப்பதான் வந்து how do you really do homeworks and அப்பதான் நான் கத்துக்கிட்டேன் ஒழுங்கா. Right, because graduate school here teaches you a lot of those kinds of things, how to be disciplined with your curriculum, and I had to learn a lot of things that I hadn't learned. Right, all this programming, Microsoft microprocessors, all of that was great, but some of the other fundamentals, linear algebra and stuff like that, I had to come and pick up at when I was studying at Tennessee Tech. I had good professors, Dr. Rajan, who always advised me and said, these are things that you ought to do. So Tennessee Tech la padichu mudichu, I got a good job in Arizona, so I was working there. அப்போ ஒர்க் பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கும்போது I enjoy working really hard. Right, is just once I get in, I just go in and stay there at 10. Arizona, it's not, people don't, they come in at 8, and at the time the internet or internet was in the early stages. You used to have a 56K modem if you had to work remotely. And I was the new kid in the block, so people used to come at 8 and used to go at 5, play basketball. And then what I used to do is I used to play along, and then after a while, after 5 to 7, other பண்ணிட்டு திரும்பி ஆஃபீஸ்க்குள்ள வந்துருவேன். And I'll just sit there and then work, and I learned a lot. Right, I mean that's where I knew. And then things started turning around, and people started noticing that hey, if you give the job to this guy, he finishes it, right, and then moves on to the next thing. And so pretty soon, I was doing really well. I had a good mentor called Peter Chambers, and he used to say, you watch, we're all going to work for this guy one day. I mean, whether it's true or not, I was also telling you earlier, Muthu, right, even at Annamalai, Professor Ramurthy ஒரு நாளைக்கு கூப்பிட்டு சொன்னார், SPM, ஏன்னா காலேஜில் வந்து SPMனு கூப்பிட்டு சொன்னார். SPM எனக்கு வந்து சாமுத்திரிக லட்சணம் வந்து ஓரளவுக்கு தெரியும். Something is different, very sharp about you, so you need to make good that to put use அப்படின்னு கொளுத்தி போட்டு போயிட்டாரு. So then those things inspire you to some extent, saying, okay, maybe there's something different. I know, and I don't consider myself an extraordinary student or anything like that. And all writing is on madri paramo illa arivijiviyo ad madha kadaidu, but I also believed in perspiration. Right, hard work is the key to success. Yara sonna madri genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. So that motivates me to continue to work hard. And then I did well at VLSI Technology, and I started inventing things. Right, this Peter told me that, hey, sounds like a good idea. Let's file a patent. So that's where my patent invention thing started. And at that time, then I said, what's next for me? Right, I got to like a really senior level engineering position in 4 years out of college. And I'm like, what do I do next? And then that's when again another talking. I said, okay, can I go do a PhD? Can I do an MBA? How do I take my career to the next step? And then I was technically inclined always, so I applied to Stanford to do a PhD. And a lot of people said it was going to be very difficult to get in when people know that it is Stanford. And I applied, and with all the patents and the standards, the committees I was involved in and stuff like that, I was able to, and good recommendation letters, as important as it is today, then I was able to get in. and I got into Stanford to a PhD program, but I had constraints, right? I had my H1 visa issues. I couldn't go full time, so I had to move to the Bay Area. So that's what brought me to the Bay Area in 2000. And then I switched job to a Cisco, so that they said, hey, Cisco is a good place to have a fixed time in your job, and then go work on other things as well, which is like your education and stuff like that. And so I joined Cisco at that time. And knowing me, I never do anything half baked or just leave it at 8 to 5. So I was working really hard at Cisco and doing my coursework at Stanford, and that went well. And the CEO of that group essentially was through an acquisition. He went out to start Ergo Networks, and when he went to Ergo Networks, he said, Subbu, we started this company. I see what all you can do. Please come and help us build these chips. Right. So then I said, I'll go to Ergo Networks. And that's where my startup bug really happened. Right. So they said I could be part of a small team. And the beautiful thing about a small team is that, you're so focused, right? There's no politics at all. Everybody has a common goal. Right. And so then I said, oh, hey, this can be game changing for the world. So I decided that was a good place to be. So I was working, and doing courses. And in between, one course a quarter is all I could do. And then I got married to Jayanti. And then I was Ergo was a critical time at that time, and they said, Subbu, can you take off from school, because all the energy you put in school, we want you to put at Ergo. And so then I said, okay, I'll give it 2 years, and I did that for that. And they were, this is a big give and take, and there was so with all the things that you give, the management also gives back equally well, right? And so they treated me really well at Ergo, and I said, let's just do this, and I did that. Ergo came to a good position, and then we had our first child in between. So and then I decided, okay, should I? When I went back to school again, so that's when I met you. So somewhere in 2003, when we were running, and I had actually moved to Stanford to finish my coursework and stuff like that. So I was just about done. Next was a qualification exam, so I had to take off and finish my work stuff. And then at some point, I decided that, okay, let me just, with all these other things going on, let me just get out with the masters for now, and then just do go do something else, right? So that was the 18 years during that time, of all the things that happened, Muthu. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. And as I spoke, there's a lot of fond memories that flashed through my mind as well.
Absolutely. It all kindles the memories of all of us for that 18 years of journey, what we were doing. Yeah. So, it sounds like a typical, person who has just followed simple things. You made it look very simple. Yeah, you did it. You simply did things all, and somebody motivated. The teaching level, some teachers motivated. One liner, one day, something they will say, stuck in your mind. And the mari nariya irundhirukku pola irukku. Amazing. And then you said you came to do PhD, and then at some point in time you decided, PhD, and I mean, there's a lot of other things going on. So again, you will fall in the school dropout. I would say PhD dropout, right?
Right. No, that's still in my plan, Muthu. At some point, I might go back to school, right? They say you, and I know you're doing something similar as well, right? I said I'll go to college with my kids when they go to college. Right. So that might be a good time for me to go. So I enjoy education, right? When they say when you go into a library, you feel stupid, and that's how I feel sometimes, right? You go into a library and you look at all the new things that are happening. You feel that there's so much to learn, right? And that's why I even went for a second master's, which was completely different than my first master's as well, because there's a lot of learning to do.
You amazingly said one thing in between. You know me, that anything I take, I don't let it go. I finish, dive deeper. If I முடிச்சிட்டு தான் போவேன் அப்படின்னு. I'm surprised how it was dropped. அதுக்காக சொல்லலாம்னு பார்த்தேன், but you did made a point that someday I'll go back.
That's right. Yeah.
Amazing.
So from so Subbu, from Ergo to Qualcomm and the next NAV, how did that happen?
Yeah, so I was at Ergo Networks, and we actually got acquired by Qualcomm in 2006, right? And it was a pretty good exit for the company itself, and so I was doing really good things at Qualcomm, right? And Qualcomm is if people they are the key contributor to all this CDMA and LTE and 5G and stuff like that. So they're always on the forefront of technology, 5-10 years ahead of competition. Very, very patent intensive company, right? There at some point their legal department was a lot larger than the technology department. The spending on the legal side was a lot larger. And Qualcomm was a fantastic company to work for. I could get access to the CEO if I wanted to, and I took advantage of those situations. Right? If you like they say in airport, if you see something, say something. And when I see something that could be fixed, and it's easy for you to be cynical, be negative, to say, okay, it'll be panlante. But what I do is that I do my homework, right, and say, this is how it could be done, and here is a POC of how this could be done, and then I take those as solutions, right? And even with my colleagues and whoever, I always say, don't bring me problems. Bring me the problems with a solution of what you think is the best to do, right?
Yeah, this is you might have heard of the 7 Successful Habits, that book by in that the circle of influence versus area of influence versus circle of concern. So
right.
Don't let it be just a concern. Make it into an area of your influence.
And that's right. That's right. Absolutely right, Arun. Right. So that's how I look at it, and I always take that opportunity. And when you do present solutions, then people are very they're listening, right? They take that into consideration. They want to do some things with you. And that has always helped me gain visibility in some sense. Right, and say that okay, hey, I'm not only presenting problems. I'm not just a whiner, as they say, right? And I don't like that also, right? I try to bring solutions. And on my perspective, I may not have the full perspective, but it is a perspective, and it's a fresh perspective from a lot of different people's views, right? So I always took that, and then I was at Qualcomm for 2 years, right? And when at that time, I know we had a good social circle here. I was in the Bay Area. Bay Area, you go to a party. I really my most favorite memory of a party is that I was at a Chettiar event, and I was talking to friends, and then Pinadilendu ஒரு call வந்து நான் the Verilog design like பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கேன் அப்படின்னு சொல்லி ஏதோ பேசிட்டு இருந்தாங்க, right? And only in the Bay Area you hear all these things when people are together. You hear sort of technical talk, and திரும்பி பார்த்தா நம்ம இளங்கோ மெய்யப்பன் இருந்தார் அண்ணாமலையில இருந்து. And I had also heard of him, and we started talking with good friends after we came out of Annamalai. And so those kinds of things that say that, okay, this is Cisco CEO கூட சொல்லுவாரு, why are you expanding so much in the Bay Area? Because it's so expensive, crowded. He said, I think it must be in the water, something in the water, that it just brings all these smart people together, and they're all here, and they all have all these ideas.
Yeah, in sociology, you have a thing called power of places.
Yeah.
There is a power to a place. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So so that's that's a then that also struck me that, man, look at the people who are here. Everybody is so accomplished, and so much talent and things like that. So then in my social circle, then I met with a good friend Ganesh. We've been hanging out since we moved here. We moved here at the same time. He was also at Qualcomm, and we were talking. I know he had just finished his MBA from Wharton, and we said, hey, let's go do something, right? I was a principal engineer at Qualcomm, and we wanted to do something in our careers, right? And we both had the startup bug as well. So we started, meeting at Starbucks and discussing a few ideas and stuff like that. And we said, okay, we will start a company, right? And we started that, and started playing around with different ideas, right? And that's the origin story of NextNav. So அதுக்கு வந்து we were looking at some TV broadcasting in stadiums, and what is the best way to do that today. That we were thinking, if internet takes off, this whole satellite broadcast may not be as important. So what is the best way to do that and stuff like that. So அது மாதிரி பண்ணிட்டு இருந்தோம். And then we said, well, let's do it as some other spectrum. We all had an RF background, so talking of spectrum frequencies, அதெல்லாம் வந்துட்டு இருந்துச்சு. Apo, somebody came to us and said, hey, there's some low frequency spectrum that's available. It's broadcast only. அதை வச்சு நீங்க எதாவது பண்ண முடியுமா பாருங்க அப்படின்னு சொன்னாங்க, right? And அப்பதான் இது ஒரு மடியில இதை வச்சுட்டு ஏதோ தேடின மாதிரி, Ganesh had a location background, and I had a hardware background, and at that time another co-founder Arun Raghupati also joined us, and he also had a GPS background. And we said, hey, then can we try to use it for location? Then we said, and why location is a problem. And I have a small presentation in a bit. I'll show you why that is a problem. And so we started working on the location problem. That company was called ComLabs, and then we went to the law firms and registered the company and started that whole process. And that was the birth of NextNav. Right? It's about wanting to do something outside of a career, wanting to do different things. And they say, like, think different. And if you look at when I explain NextNav, you'll realize the complexity of that problem. Right? It's a really complex problem. But I'll say, in some sense, the fact that we did not know how complex it was going to be in the long run really helped us start that company. Because analysis paralysis என்ற மாதிரி நிறைய பேர் யோசிச்சிட்டோம், அது வேலை செய்யாது இது வேலை செய்யாது, ரொம்ப தெரிஞ்சதுன்னா பிரச்சனை. அதுதான் I always love hiring new college graduates, because new college graduates பயமே கிடையாது. அது இந்த காலத்து new college graduatesக்கு சுத்தமா பயம் கிடையாது. They feel they can do anything. They know more than you, right? Starting from our teenagers, they always know more than you. And but they do, right? They are in the forefront of technology. They're forefront of what's happening. You and I cannot really understand how all this, how Instagram works and how people monetize and stuff like that, but they know exactly what that means, and they talk business models and stuff like that, right? So it's kind of the Ilangandra Bayamariyadanga mari. We were new to the block, and we said, this should be doable, right? And people question, you're very cavalier about it, and we said, hey, maybe it is, but it's doable, right? So
actually, I just wanted to bring back, right? Today the GPS technology is really more than 50-year-old. What we are using today for locating ourselves, GPS for locating all the maps, but they only are accessible because of the phones now that we have in all our hands.
Mm-hmm.
So but we are using a 50-year technology. It's not able to give you a accurate location. It just approximate location. So that's what you ventured to solve it. And what the important point that I understand is that you change your direction a lot in the beginning. You are more flexible.
Is really more than 50-year-old.
So now let's go into that. Now let's get into what is next. Let's get into the details.
Sure. I will. There's a little bit of echo.
This is the time you can explain us what is NextNav.
Kandiva.
Right?
Yeah. Kandiva. So I have a few slides. I'll try to keep it really low tech, just to say what it means. And first of all, I want to put a disclaimer out. NextNav is now a publicly traded company with a market cap of about 1.2 billion. So I want to make sure that I'm not saying anything that's outside the books here. All this information that I'm going to talk about talks about NextNav's technology, and it's publicly available information. And as a matter of fact, I pulled a lot of these slides from NextNav's investor presentation. And all the views that I'm saying are my own, nothing to do with NextNav. And to be very clear, I left NextNav in 2019 to start this new company called the ECSite, which is, I'll talk a little bit about that as well. And so it's best that we don't discuss any. NN is a ticker symbol for NextNav, because if we don't talk about anything related to the NextNav stock. So with that disclaimer, I want to say, GPS. People know GPS means location, right? but actually GPS affects about 16. There's critical infrastructure in the US they define, which is transportation, energy, manufacturing. So GPS affects close to about 14 of those 16 critical infrastructure companies, right? And you may not know, right? Cell phones today operate because of GPS. Electrical engineering படிச்சிருப்போம் 3 phase. Those 3 phases across the country are being kept in phase through GPS today, right? So GPS is not, it's a timing source and it's also a location source. So it's important to realize the importance of GPS, right? So it's and as I said, it's a $1 trillion economy that is affecting and is doubling. The use cases of GPS are exploding significantly, right? So that's important about GPS. Now, so us being so reliant on GPS, what happens if something GPS does not work, right? And for that, I want to show you how GPS works. Just a GPS, that's the Earth, and you have 24 satellites at MEO orbits, right? Medium Earth orbits. 20,000 MEO orbit is 20,000 kilometers away, and MEO now on the satellite சுத்திட்டே இருக்கும். And that way, that's how they provide worldwide coverage. And just to give you an example, or not an example, the power, the signals are coming from the satellite. It's a broadcast signal, right? Ellarum receive பண்ணலாம். That's why there's no user limitations on GPS. And people know milliwatt, microwatt, picowatt, அதுக்கப்புறம் femtowatt and attowatt, right? And that's the level of signal that we receive. And compare that to a cellular signal, right? Cellular signal, if you were to compare this, compare a cellular signal to be of that size, the GPS signal will be less than a small dot in this sheet of paper, right? That's how weak the GPS signals are that we receive. And for the technically inclined, it's somewhere between neg 120 dBm to neg 150 dBm in terms of received power, and it's a pretty weak signal, well below thermal noise floor, right? So that's all the technology that I'll talk about. But it's a very weak signal, right? And you forget how much useful the stuff that we study is, right? And I use it even a few days back. We were talking about at EC site taking some trace waveforms and analyzing the Fourier transform of that. So we use it more than you think. And GPS is all about triangulation. You need 3 satellites to triangulate, and you take the intersection of that point to identify where you are, right? All this, so it's a big time linear algebra problem and matrix inverse problem, right? And Muthukuda equation, AX equal to B, X equal to A inverse B. How do you invert that matrix, right? So it's a large set of matrices, and how do you invert those matrices to find the solution? It's 4 simultaneous equations. So you need 3 satellites to do that. Ideally, you need 4. So it becomes 4 satellites. So 4 simultaneous equations to solve the 4 unknowns, which is X, Y, Z, and timing. So triangulation is how GPS works, right? The moon satellite, the intersection of those curves will give you the location at which you are in. That's how GPS works. Now, what are the problems with GPS, right? First one, the signal from the satellite, if it hits a building, you guys think, so GPS, first of all, doesn't work indoors, right? And because there's a challenge there, because the satellites are able to come to the wall as it is, right? Tower, so imagine 20,000 kilometers signal, right? And these brick walls that we have, in concrete walls that we have, they're all very bad for RF propagation. And if glass buildings, they're making it more greener, and they put all kinds of tape on it. All of those are not great for indoor coverage. So the signal cannot penetrate indoors, right? So even if it does, there's a lot of problems. And I used to always say, when we drive around some beautiful neighborhoods, they have brick houses. They say, my wife says, "Oh, look at those beautiful brick houses," and I say that's 30 dB of loss. That is what I see through those brick houses. So just as a number, right? Once you hit a wall, the signal becomes weaker by 1,000 times. Weak, right? So already it's in that range. So the signal becomes very weak. So indoor coverage does not work. And another interesting idea is about urban canyons. ஸோ அவங்களுக்குலாம் கிராண்ட் கேனியன் தெரியும், ஒரு பெரிய பள்ளத்தாக்கு. அதே மாதிரி அர்பன் கேனியன்ஸ்னு பார்த்தீங்கன்னா, if you go to downtown San Francisco, right, you have all these tall buildings. Again, satellite வரும், right? மேல இருந்து இந்த 2 satellite மட்டும் தான் தெரியும். So you cannot triangulate. So how are we going to driverless cars, right? How are people going to navigate in these areas, right? So that's all a really interesting, physics, mathematics, and science that comes together to make all of these things work, right? And there are more and more. So if you look at all the challenges with GPS, indoors la vela seiyadhu, urban canyons la vela seiyadhu, right? And people are very hesitant to turn their GPS on when they're driving unless they have a charger, because GPS வந்து power கரைச்சு குடிச்சிரும், right? And the reason why it does that is because the signal is going so weak, the processor inside the phone is working hard to search for that signal all the time and keep it in lock, right? So the power consumption is a big problem, right? But people say, hey, I turn my phone on, it works beautifully for gives me my location inside the home. And that is because people found that this is a problem, and they came up with all kinds of, I would say, ad hoc techniques like Wi-Fi based positioning. Wi-Fi access point வீட்ல இருக்கு இல்லையா, அதை வந்து இப்போ கூகுள் கார் டிரைவ் பண்ணிட்டே இருக்கு. So when Google cars are driving and street view cars, right, they're collecting data. They also collect your access point information and say, okay, Subbu வீட்ல இந்த access, இந்த Wi-Fi SSID or MAC address இருக்கு, அதை நாங்க வந்து நோட் பண்ணி வச்சுக்கோம். That way, when your phone comes up and looks for Wi-Fi, it will send that to Google and then get that information as your location at your house, right? But what happens when I move my house, or I take my access point, so my location becomes wrong, right? Or what happens when power goes out, that's not there anymore. So location on this should be reliable, right? So yeah, who is accountable for your location, right? So that's important. And there's also this cyber terrorism is a big problem now, right? If you really in the government circles, you'll see how people are paranoid about what could happen with satellite communication in general, right? There's the EMP pulse in our concept. They launch, make those things happen. Some rogue countries can do that over time. So then all satellite communication will be lost, right? So then what do we do, right? I don't know how many of you know. So you can see that GPS, by the way, was invented by the U.S. military, right? Department of Defense, to help locate all of their assets across the world, right? They have banks. I mean, they have military stations. Locate GPS, and we are all reliant in India. We're all reliant on GPS, right? So a lot of countries are reliant on GPS. But if the US decides to turn off GPS for that location, then what happens, right? And some countries have now put up their own GPS constellations, right? Russia has GLONASS, Europe has Galileo. India வந்து Gagan or satellite constellation that only covers India, right? China has Beidou. So different people are putting up satellites. But what do you do about all these small countries that cannot afford its own satellites? So what is really needed is a ground-based system. So you want to bring these satellites down and put it everywhere in a way that that you can do. You can help GPS work indoors, help GPS work in urban canyons. Make it low power, make your location reliable. So that was the concept behind NextNav, right? So NextNav was to go solve a lot of these problems, and so NextNav is what we call next generation GPS, right? We wanted to work in for driverless cars. We wanted to work for drones, for package delivery, urban canyons, indoors. And the main thing that we started out with NextNav is, so it's another important thing that I want everybody to know. So I still have a landline phone. I know most of you don't, and certainly millennials don't. Landline phone, landline phone is attached to an address. So when you make a 911 call, they're almost guaranteed to give you service within 7 minutes, because they know the exact location where you're calling from, right? But in a cell phone, 911 கூப்பிட்டீங்கன்னா, there's no reliable location on the cell phones today, right? And NextNav technology is not there. There's no reliable location on the cell phones. So the first thing that they ask you, even if there's one word that they can get from you, is, hey, this is 911. Where are you calling from, right? And so that's how important location is for 911 servicing, right? So on the problem is solved பண்றதுக்கு தான், and indoors, most of the 911 calls are coming from indoors. And if you, now that you know about NextNav, if you go read about indoor 911 location, there's a government mandate to solve this problem, and NextNav is on the forefront of all of this. So it's important to know public safety is a big piece of location as well, right? And there's gaming, there's all kinds of things that people do with location that you can think of, right? There's I don't know whether how many of you have been following the drone market. So drones are big, but eVTOLs, people are trying to have like private air taxis, right? So those things are now conceptually available in the Gulf, and all of those needs location in a reliable way that you can navigate through urban canyons and other places. Tree GPS right? If you have dense tree cover, GPS won't work. So it's important to know that the problems of GPS, so that, and that's where we decided to solve this problem at NextNav, right? And how does NextNav do this? Is that we went and acquired some licensed spectrum from the U.S. government FCC through the investments, and we have about 8 megahertz of bandwidth, and then we go deploy beacons, right? In the if you see these picture here, that's a picture of a beacon that we install on cell towers with an antenna, right? And so you have to deploy this nationwide and facing into the cities like this, you can see, and then again triangulation. Other than the triangulation concept now. So we use an entire GPS ecosystem after that, right, on the receiver side. But what we have to do is build out these beacons. And I want to also shout out to Bhaskar Srinivasan from Annamalai University. He runs a manufacturing company called Sienna and Avalon. So all these beacons are through a partnership with that company. All these beacons are made. A lot of these were made at that time, but even now, a lot of things are made at his facility in Fremont. So thank you, Bhaskar. And this Annamalai Bandha, it took us a long way because there's all kinds of challenges. And he said that, hey, this is a good company, right? And so that really helped. So that's, I want to shout out to him as well. And so all the other principles, right? Triangulation is all based off of GPS. And what we call this terrestrial satellites, right? We try to, and the ideas, a lot of ideas you think are very simple in the sense, how do you take advantage of the existing? Because I know I can come up with a completely different technology, and but then I want to reuse as much plumbing as already there and take advantage of it, right? So that's and the other thing with NextNav I want to say is that when we started out, we said maybe 5 to 6 years to become really viable for everybody to use. It's taken 12 years to get to this point. And the investors, we were resilient, we were persistent. The investors were very supportive, and people bought into your long-range vision. And it's a huge, huge problem to solve. Imagine, right, building a new nationwide network of these beacons on cell towers and things like that, right? So just 2 more slides on this is that we also have a very simple concept of how do you find a person at a given floor. GPS floor level positioning, vertical positioning is a problem, and pressure sensors. So simple physics again. If you know the pressure varies with height, on the concept of which we were able to solve the vertical location, and we try to do. And it's actually the vertical location piece is deployed in now 4,400 cities in the US. There's some international markets also that's coming up, as you can see on the website about Japan and things like that. That's happening, right? Like as an interesting story, I'll say, is the Department of Transportation here, they wanted to do a trial with all the location technologies that are out there to see what is a backup to GPS. If something were bad to happen with GPS, what can we do? And these are all the technologies that played, right? And you can see that NextNav came in first in just about every category, right? Because it's reliable, it's accurate. So that was a huge win for us. And I'll end this with an interesting note. So this is the kind of test that they did by driving cars and flying drones at the NASA Langley Research Center. And I spent a good amount of time there when we were pulling all this stuff together at NASA Langley. And in the 8 பாதம் தான் எனக்கு ஞாபகம் வச்சு, நம்ம ஒரு RTO ஆஃபீஸர் தான் போயிட்டு அங்கே டெஸ்ட் பண்ணியிருப்பாங்க அப்படின்ட்டு. That's the kind of things that they do to verify that your location is reliable and it's accurate, right? So maybe it took a little bit longer than what I thought, but I want to explain the origins of NextNav, what NextNav does, and why location is important for all of us.
This is very good. So basically, you solve these major problems with bringing the equivalent of GPS to the terrestrial, to the ground, basically.
Correct.
And
exactly.
put those beacons in all the cell towers. That helps you triangulate, and then the vertical is using the pressure sensors.
That's right.
And that's accuracy is like dramatically improved accuracy, right? So it's life or death, basically.
That's right.
What you're doing.
Literally,
and it's all the more relevant in the drone space, because you have to navigate self-navigated drones, automatic self-navigated cars, all of that. This will be really useful. Right. So now you mentioned about the funding, right? So how did you go about looking for funds? Because this is a long project, like you said.
That's right.
You're working on without revenue for several years, and because it's not overnight. Like GPS took 50 years to become really used right
That's
now.
Right.
I hope it's not that way. This is probably a lot more now. But yes. Right. So how did you manage that? Looking for funds. As an entrepreneur, a lot of people who are on the call would love to know how you went about.
Sure. I wouldn't say it's a typical story. So what happened was in 2009, we decided that we will, we will all quit our day jobs and, go do this full time. So now myself, Ganesh, Arun, and, we actually had a couple of other people as well who joined us at that time. And we started the company. We built the prototype, we bootstrapped the company, right? And so it's like for 6 months, first 6 months, we said, okay, no salaries, and maybe we'll get funded in 6 months and start to draw salaries. And as always, things take longer. And so we started building the prototypes, and we actually, talked to nearby restaurant owners and say, hey, can we put a beacon on your roof? Because we couldn't afford to go to a cell tower and put stuff up and whatnot. And so we went and spoke to them and got a prototype running in our office. And then we went to, in the Silicon Valley, there's a famous road called Sand Hill Road, which is where all these VCs are, right, in Palo Alto. And we went up and down, and people used to get excited about our vision. And we used to talk to them and go to the partner, first level, second level partner meetings. And we probably spoke to 50 different VCs, right? And they all used to love the idea, but the fact that there's so many moving parts, right? There's so many variables. There's the long-term vision. People want to look at, what can I get an exit in 5 years, things like that, right? So there was so it was difficult for us to raise money, and it took us more than a year before we found the right partner who also had spectrum. And we were talking to somebody. And I would say never hesitate to talk to people, right? Always talk to people. They always give you some pointers, and build your network. Building your network is very important. We're talking to somebody at one of the tower companies. They said, hey, we know this company in DC who does investing on the infrastructure side. Why don't you talk to them? So then we went and pitched that to them, and they also had some spectrum that they figured out what they can do with that spectrum. And people who don't know the spectrum business is on the real estate madri da. You go to the FCC will auction the spectrum, which is essentially kaarthu vikra madri. But you buy a spectrum in a specific area, and then you squat on that spectrum, right? You sit there until, and if it's useful spectrum, somebody will come and pay big bucks to buy that spectrum from you. So the VCs that we were involved in, they had a lot of spectrum like that, and they said, "Hey, can you put this to good use?" And then we said, could you also fund us along with that? And then they did some initial investment to see whether this can work, and we showed that spectrum can actually work. And then slowly we started building up, and that's how we raised capital. So even it took us close to about 15 to 18 months before we could close our first round of funding to actually draw a salary, right? So until then, you just had to live on water and air and family support, right? So that's how.
You mentioned about Raj Singh meeting.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so very interesting. So one of the first investors was Columbia Capital and Telecom Ventures, run by Raj Singh. So Raj Singh came to this country in the 60s, and he was a professor at Kansas University. And he invented the first software to do what is now called radio planning through a company called LCC. Our story is a very interesting story. And he was one of our first investors. And he said, hey, so, Subbu and Ganesh will come and see what you guys are doing. So we were waiting for him, and he just walks in his sneakers. Very, very simple man. We talked and we hit it off right away, and he started believing. And he knew that technically we could do this. But he was a very business savvy man, and he always believes in long-term vision. And so he said that, hey, this is, let's go give this a fair shot, right? So he's a billionaire, right? And sometimes board games. So I mean, that kind of is a lesson in being humble. You learn from all these big people. The rich people are rich because they know how to be wise about spending, how to be good about this. On this journey, right, we met so many really interesting, nice people that also says that, hey, you can be successful, but you can still be nice, right? There's all, at the end of the day, we all have to see each other and greet each other and enjoy each other's company. So it's been a great
You
journey.
mentioned about like different modes, like tranche investments and all that.
Correct, right. Yeah, so people think, once you get the VC money, it's all good to go. It's not, right? Like somebody said, you're always on a treadmill, and you're measured, as a public company, you're measured every quarter with your stock price. As an investor, every quarter you're measured with, what you accomplish, what you're doing. So even our investments were tranche investments, in the sense they'll give you, they say, okay, we allocate $5 million for you. 3 million is if you meet these milestones, and then another 2 million, because they also don't want to risk their capital, right? So it's kind of, and always on the edge, always on in a uncomfortable position, and that's where you really need to be to continue to make sure that you're not complacent, you're delivering, and you're on top of your game, right?
And very important point, you hired somebody senior, more smart, connected than you, Gary, as CEO. Tell me about that. That was a very interesting thing you guys did as a founder.
Sure, Arun. So now, when you start a company, people think about ownership and who owns this, and should I be on the top of this and stuff like that, right? But as a founder, it's sometimes very difficult to give up control, right? But if it is for the right person, and say, should this person control, not in the sense of stock and stuff like that, but in terms of making decisions, presenting to investors, and things like that. And on that note, Columbia Capital said that, hey, talk to Gary Parsons. Gary Parsons was founder, CEO of XM satellite radio. People know AM, FM. XM is satellite-based radio that you can hear everywhere, that has similar challenges as GPS. So he understood this domain really well. And we talked to him and said that, and he felt like he was well connected with the government, and as we had to go through spectrum and things like that, so he was well respected in the community. And US meeting Gary then people will stand up to greet him, and that's the kind of respect that he commanded as well. And so it was the right person. So when there is a right person who comes along, even today, I would never hesitate to bring people like that in to run the show, if you will, right? So it's important to have the right team, right, and important to have right partners, and everybody has the same mission. Then I think it's a win-win from that perspective.
So Gary, like in a position hire பண்ணீங்க?
A CEO. He was a CEO.
He was a CEO, yeah. So he was your boss, but you, right.
Yeah, he was our boss. Yeah. Ganesh was the president, who was running, let's say, day to day. But then, Gary used to was the CEO of the company. And that was for 3 years. Yeah.
With your explanation of what is NextNav, what it does, what the problems of GPS, you explained very, 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 very down to the earth level, because technology. I mean, Arun is also in the communication industry, so he might understand a lot more than what I do. But GPS problems, tell me about it. Right? So மரத்தடியில போனா ஏன் ஒர்க் பண்ணாது? நம்ம கார்ல ஃபர்ஸ்ட் ஜிபிஎஸ் வந்தப்ப பாத்துருக்கோம். நம்ம நல்ல ரூட்ல போயிட்டு இருப்போம், லைட்ல போலாமா லெஃப்ட்ல போலாமோ திடீர்னு சொல்லுவோம் ரீகால்குலேட்டிங் அப்படின்னு. Should I make a turn or not? that you touched so many points. எங்கெல்லாம் issues இருக்கு, 911, emergency, எப்படிலாம் பண்றோம். So those were amazing. The technology wise you explained. I hope this, the technology இன்னும் நிறைய solutions கொடுக்கணும். But your experience with NASA, this is one dream for many people, right? Even today, when you ask kids, hey, where do you want to go? I want to be a scientist in NASA. Right. And then I heard NASA invested a huge money in that, and then you were there helping with the tests that you show.
That's right.
எல்லாமே எட்டுல முடிஞ்ச மாதிரி இருந்தது அதுல. How was your experience on that part? NASA கூட ஒர்க் பண்ணும்போது, now it is a private technology company. உங்ககிட்ட அவங்க வந்து they are dependent now, right?
Right.
So how was it?
Yeah, so they again always these new things that you learn. Adhu, keep your eyes and ears open. பெரியவங்க நிறைய பேர் நமக்கு சொல்லியிருக்காங்க, and it's very important, right? I know you listen and so I love going to conferences, right? And not necessarily to meet people, because you always learn something new, see new things, and people walk around on the exhibit floor to pick up all kinds of trinkets and stuff like that. But but you stop at a booth and talk to people, you learn so many things that are happening, right? This whole NASA opportunity also came to us, in the sense I had gone to a conference, and I always go to as many conferences as I can, and go sit in the session and stuff like that. And then I was talking to somebody who was with the Department of DHS, the Department of Homeland Security, saying that, hey, this is what we're doing. And appadhaan the DHS had formed, and they were looking at border every location border, the Mexico border, right? There's a big problem here. So adellaam pannittu pesittu irukumbodhu, then I was explaining to him, hey, look at this, right? This is what we're trying to do. This might have other implications, and what do you think? And avarku edho bulb erinjichu on the time, right? And it was a casual conversation, and he said, Subbu, I want to take this into DHS and see what we can do. And then and he became a champion, right? And then we wanted to they said, எல்லாருக்கும் தெரியும் டெமோனா எப்படி இருக்கும்னு. ஸோ உங்க டெமோலாம் எனக்கு தெரியும், பட் நாங்களே அந்த டெமோ பண்ணணும். ஸோ அதுக்கு we want to set up a test bed and bring other people also in. அப்படின்னு சொல்லிட்டு they went and got they said, okay, we'll do it through NASA, right? And we were trying to identify what are the best facilities. And NASA வந்து அந்த டைம்ல ட்ரோனுக்கு வந்து பிளேனுக்கு there's rules, right? FAA creates rules. காருக்கு there's rules, right? The Department of Transportation creates rules, and but ட்ரோனுக்கு ரூல்ஸே கிடையாது, right? And today if you really look at it, இந்த வாரம் கூட, right? So ஈராக்ல யாரையோ வந்து ட்ரோன் வச்சுட்டு இது பண்ண பார்த்தாங்க, right? So drone is a big threat today to security and stuff like that, right? So drones, they want, and then people are Amazon, all these guys are pushing. A few years முன்னாடி பாத்தீங்கன்னா, வீட்டுக்கு முன்னாடி வந்து drone வச்சு இறக்க போறோம், groceries வந்துரும், அது வந்துரும். But it's not here because there's no rules. So NASA formed a coalition, and they wanted to create rules, and they wanted to create a test bed and stuff like that. And that's when they put up a bid out to say, okay, we're going to try and do all these location technologies. And drone-க்கு தான் பெரிய problem என்னன்னா urban canyon, right? And and உங்க ரூஃப்ல கீழே போனாலே வந்து சேட்டலைட்ஸ் பிளாக் ஆயிடும் வீட்டுக்கு முன்னாடி. So that's a problem. Treesக்கு கீழே போனோம், அது பிளாக் ஆயிடும். So there's all these problems are there. So NASA wanted to figure those things out, and so they put a bid out, and they and we got selected as well as one of the vendors. That's நிறைய பேர் டெக்னாலஜி எல்லாம் வந்தாங்க. So then I had to I spent a lot of time in the campus to find what the right locations are to install these beacons, and when they're doing testing, somebody had to be there. So I had a really ஒரு 6 மாசம் போயிட்டு வந்துட்டே இருந்தேன் NASA Langley. Really good time there in terms of learning that the kinds of things. I went to see where they designed some of these antennas and things like that for the satellites, how they mock satellites, and how they test it, the kinds of testing that they do, right? Because of space, right? And the kinds of testing that they do before they launch, and then went and saw all the radio telescopes that they were using. So I made a lot of learning for me, and triggered a lot of thoughts, and say, okay, hey, these are all, there's just so many problems to solve in the world, and NASA is on top of some of them as well, and it was good for me to be there. I introduced, so they always buy the Rolls Royce, but there's a lot of for anything, right? They buy the Rolls Royce, but we're a cheap company, right? And they were amazed how, or small company I would say. So we buy smaller equipment that does better than some of these Rolls Royce in some extent, that we don't mind throwing away. And those are some of the things that I was able to offer to them, to say, hey guys, you can buy some of these to attach to your drones to measure things, and that makes life a lot easier. And so it's a good experience there with the engineering team there.
Excellent. So NextNav is now publicly listed. It's a very unique way you went public, right?
Correct. Yeah, it was a SPAC deal, right? Yeah. Yeah, we can talk a little bit about
Special
that.
purpose acquisition company,
right? Yeah, right. So I mean, I'm not a finance guy, so take all of this with an engineer's viewpoint of what a SPAC is. So a SPAC, as I understand it, right, is a special purpose acquisition company. So some wealthy people or people who have investors, institutional investors, they come together and form what is called as a SPAC. And the goal of the SPAC is only to raise money to acquire another company to bring them to public, right? So, for example, the NextNav SPAC called Spartacus Acquisition Corporation, they raised $200 million, and first they go public, right? Because it's there's no no revenues, nothing. There's just a collection of money, and they go public on an IPO market, and so they'll be trading, and people can buy SPACs today, right? And so then after the money they go IPO, within 2 years they have to go acquire a company, right? So and that's how NextNav was acquired into that SPAC, and then once the acquisition happens with the vote and all that, you can change your ticker symbol and stuff like that, right? So that's how the SPAC was there. But then another concept with SPAC is that sometimes the SPAC money is not enough to acquire a company, so you can raise the value of the SPAC, or they also bring in what is called PIPE investments, private investment into public equity. And so it's a combination of that is what, it was about $400 million for NextNav. And that's what bought NextNav and brought it to the public market, right? At a $1.2 billion valuation. And so it's an interesting way of doing, going public. People say there's less scrutiny and this and that, but the initial SPAC itself is, but then when you file your S4 to acquire a company and stuff like that, the same level of scrutiny. But it's a very popular way to go public these days as well.
Very good. So that
question
actually,
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Now, one thing that I heard you say, I am not part of NextNav anymore. Hey, there is a company, great company, you're doing such an amazing thing to the wonders of the world, making life changes to a lot of technology. What made you think, hey, you know what, it's time to move on and switch? Because, நம்ம கிரிக்கெட்ல இப்ப சொல்லுவோம், கேப்டன் இருப்பாரு, விட மாட்டார், கடைசி வரைக்கும் போக மாட்டார், ஐயோ எப்பவா ரிட்டையர் ஆவாரான்னு பார்ப்போம்.
தோனி சிஎஸ்கே விட்டாத மாதிரி.
இப்ப தோனி இருக்காரு, ஒரு காலத்துல நம்ம படிக்கும் போது கவாஸ்கர் நிலைமை இருந்தது, right? But the question is, how did you make a decision that you don't want to be part of it, or is there a reason why?
Yeah, it's a very good question, and a good one to always think about, right? In the sense, so I was at NextNav, actually 2009 is when we formed the company. 2007, as fabled stories goes, Jayanti and kids were in India, and Ganesh and I got together in my living room, and we set up a lab and started playing with some ideas and stuff like that. 2007, it started. So 2000, as it was 12, 14 years we were spent at NextNav, and so somewhere in between, we had to solve a problem for NextNav, right? And there was as we're deploying these beacons, we saw that beacons you'll give it to contractors, and the tower the contractors will go install those beacons. And when they install those beacons, அவங்க வந்து எல்லாம் சைன் பண்ணி கொடுத்துருவாங்க, நான் இன்ஸ்டால் பண்றோம், சூப்பரா எல்லாம் வேலை செஞ்சிரும், and we gave them a test procedure. So they did all of that, and they give us a document, and போய் ஃபீல்ட்ல போய் டெஸ்ட் பண்ணா something will be off, right? And we spent a lot of time debugging that, and eventually we figured out that the installation was going wrong, right? There were some pieces of the installation that they had to use some equipment that they were not doing it correctly. So உடனே committee போடு, procedure மாத்து அப்படின்னு சொல்லிட்டு ப்ரொசீஜர்லாம் மாற்றி, then we gave them step by step இதுதான் பண்ணிட்டு பார்த்தா திரும்பி அதே பிரச்சனை தான் வந்துச்சு, right? And then said, there's got to be a better way to do this problem. So then I worked with my friend Karthik and to develop a mobile app. He's also from Annamalai, to develop a mobile app to solve that problem, at NextNav. And so we did that, and then once we solved that problem of automating things that are happening in the field, and now it's a new field called Field Services Enablement. Once we started automating that, then what happened was we never had to go back to fix on the tower side. So அப்போதான் எனக்கு ஒரு bulb on ஆச்சு, saying, okay, இதெல்லாம் இப்படி பண்றாங்கன்னா, then what is AT&T doing? What is Verizon doing? Or what are the operators doing in general across the US, across the world? And then I figured out that it's still, they're deploying in the early stages of 4G technology, and they were still doing pencil and paper, spreadsheets. And then again, there was a good connection for me with Mahadevan, was my classmate, and he's at a high position at Annamalai at AT&T. And I called him and asked him, saying, is there any process and stuff like that? He said, yeah, there's a process and people follow, and it's still pencil and paper, right? So that said, there's a bigger problem to solve here. And then I said, okay, cell tower, maybe there's 100 cables that are running up the tower. So what are they doing for all these large stadiums? Like in the SoFi, Raiders Stadium, basketball arena, thousands and thousands of cables are being deployed, and I'm still very surprised to find out that it's still pencil and paper, or the modern version of pencil and paper is manually entering spreadsheets, right? And I just I saw a huge opportunity and a problem to solve, and I started tinkering with that. And then at some point, I also saw that NextNav was on a path. We had developed the technology, and AT&T was fully bought in on what they want to do at that time with NextNav. So we're just going to go execute and deploy and raise more capital and get that going. So I wanted to work on something again new, innovative, and create more solutions for the industry. And this whole digital transformation, AI, all of those was that I felt that the industry could take advantage of on the cellular industry. And then that's when I decided to leave NextNav and start ECSite, right? So ECSite is it's an app-based company, but it solves a very technical problem in the field by talking to. So what we say is our mission is to bring people, processes, AI, and machines together for a seamless workflow to make things happen a lot faster. And Arun, being this industry, will appreciate some of the challenges with a lot of these things. And we're trying to solve that problem. And it's been a very rewarding experience that I came out and did that in terms of being able to solve a problem that nobody solved before.
One thing you touched upon is it's a very good message. Anything you work on, keep your eyes and ears open. There may be other problems to solve.
Wherever you see a problem, convert that into an opportunity.
That's right.
So that's how you solve the problem in your previous, the NextNav, that became the new company solution.
That's right. Yeah.
Fantastic.
And like you said, whenever you see a problem, it is a problem, right? And there will not be a solution. And whether you can take it or not is a question, and figure out a way to make it better.
Very good. So we are almost at the end of our, we have another 15 minutes, 20 minutes. First and foremost, before we jump to the Q&A, we have a lot of questions on YouTube. Okay. Number one, I just wanted to tell all those who are listening, there is a link on the YouTube. Use that and enter your name there so that you get entered into the raffle for the Starbucks, Amazon gift cards. Number one. Number two, the AUAA-USA.org. Go and become a member if you have not become a member.
Please, I'll add to that as well. It's a beautiful network, right? And I'm a life member as well. A lot of connections, and I'm so glad to see so many alumni at really high places, and you never know who can help where. And Arun, but he happens to be in the same industry as I am, and he's made introductions that I couldn't have gotten otherwise. So it's important that we stay connected in the network.
Absolutely. So let's talk about your family.
Yeah. So in Vaitheeswarankoil, mostly I remember, although in Pulangurichi, Chettinadla, mostly friends, cricket villainadhu my mom and dad, appa amma Vaitheeswarankoil irundanga. My father is no more, but my mom still lives in Vaitheeswarankoil, and so yaar Vaitheeswarankoil vandalum avasiyam veetukku vaanga. That's what I would say. We have a place to stay for all of our friends and family. So avasiyam vaanga.
எனக்கு தெரிஞ்சு வைத்தீஸ்வரன் கோயிலுக்கு 2 விஷயத்துக்கு எல்லாரும் வருவாங்க. ஒன்னு இந்த வைத்தியநாதரை பாக்குறதுக்கு, right? So that your health is important. ரெண்டாவது இந்த நாடி ஜோசியம் பார்க்க வருவாங்க.
Right, yeah.
So I'm sure you know a lot about it. நாடி ஜோசியம் வந்து first of all உனக்கு பார்க்க தெரியுமா அப்படி?
எனக்கு பார்க்க தெரியாது. All the big josiers who are there right now, we all used to play cricket together at a young age, right? So
okay, there's a lot more connections there as well. Okay,
that's right, yeah. So
but apparently they gave your சொன்ன எதுவுமே
most people ask me, உனக்கு நீ நாடி ஜோசியம் உனக்கு பார்த்திருக்கியா, உனக்கு பலிக்குமா அப்படின்ட்டு. பட் நான் நாடி ஜோசியம் பார்த்திருக்கேன். பட் அது ஜெனரலி ஜாதகம் பார்ப்பாங்க, ஜோசியம் பார்ப்பாங்க. But one thing I would say is that not to say anything different, but there's only certain things you need to take into account, right?
Correct.
And I went and asked one of them who's a little bit more philosophical that I could talk to, and I said, நீங்க எல்லாம் இப்படி இந்த ஜோசியம் இவ்வளவு பேர் வராங்கல்ல, வந்து நீங்க எனக்கு வந்து அப்படி அதோட நம்பிக்கை இல்லை, வரமாட்டேங்குது ஏன் அப்படின்னு. அவர் சொன்னாரு, சுபு நீ சின்ன பையன், உனக்கு வந்து கஷ்டம்னு எதுவும் வரல, ரைட்? கஷ்டம்னு வந்தேன்னா இதை எப்படி ஃபிக்ஸ் பண்ணலாங்கிறதுக்கு நீ வந்து ஏதாச்சும் வழி தேடுவ. அதுக்கு ஜோசியம் வந்து ஒரு வடிகால், ரைட்? And whatever we say, you have to take it with I'm a human, right? I can make errors. So I will try to tell you what I know, right? If your birth date is wrong, if this thing is wrong, the stars are real, the planets are real, the movement is real, and how things happen, these are all real. I thought that was a fantastic explanation, right? Of what this whole the astrology means in general. ஆனா அவங்க ஒருத்தர் வந்து ஒரு 2 பேர் கன்சிஸ்டண்டா சொன்னாங்க, நீங்க வந்து இங்க இருக்க மாட்டீங்க, அமெரிக்கா போயிடுவீங்க அப்படின்னாங்க, ஒரு வெளியில போயிடுவீங்க. That's great. And then but they also said, நீங்க வந்து ஒரு அதிகாரத்துக்கு வந்து வர மாட்டீங்க அப்படின்னு சொன்னாங்க. And not that I want to break any of that or anything like that, but if I come now to think of it in perspective, that wasn't true, right? And I always starting from next nowadays and whatnot, that didn't work out to be true. So not whatever they say or whatever anybody says for that matter, you have to stick to, and you follow your heart, you follow your passion, you follow your faith, and things will happen.
அதிகாரத்துக்கு வரமாட்டீங்கன்னு சொன்னதுல நல்ல ஒரு தாட் இருக்கு எனக்கு டிஃபரெண்டா. You are not the CEO of NextNav. You found someone else. Today you are the CEO of EC Site. Who knows? There might be somebody else you will be hiring as CEO and you will be the chairman. You never know, right?
இப்ப இருந்தாலும் ஒரு பீரியட்ல இருந்துட்டாலும் so that breaks the mold.
Absolutely. So back to family. Sorry.
Sure. So my and then one of the inspirations that I've always had is my father. He used to work so hard, right? And his thing was about the family all the time, but he used to work so hard. And I sort of got his bug from working hard, and I always pride myself in working hard because that's a way that I learned. And my mom is super smart, super strong woman, and I don't necessarily inherit all of her characteristics in terms of the confidence that she has when she talks to people and stuff like that. But there's inspirations from both sides that of the family, and my unbelievable support from my wife Jayanti, some of you know as well, and she's விளையாட்டு கூட சொல்ல, நான் வந்து யோசிக்க இதுக்குள்ள இறங்கலாமான்னு யோசிச்சேன்னா வந்து she'll say go, right? And she'll very supportive, and sometimes like I said, one வருஷம் we didn't have a salary and stuff like that, and she used to work and support me in health insurance, and she used to, and I had a little decent confidence that I can always find a job, but never had she once said that go find a day job or do work on these things and stuff like that, right? And she knows that I prioritize things that need to be done, and been very supportive, right? So my family's been very supportive, and my sisters again, always encouraging me. Now with WhatsApp, I get a lot of encouragements and stuff like that, right? And not that, and those are very important. As a family member, it's very important that you encourage your peers, right? And, there's no ego about this and who's better, who's not good, better. Encouragement, like I said, the most of this little trinkets that people threw at me shaped me, right? And sometimes I don't feel I should say that I'm successful, because success is a different measure for different people. But I'm at a happy place, right? And I'm and I'm able to help people. I'm able to be part of people who can help. And so it all came from my family, and I'm always thankful for that. To all of them, and I'd say I also try to go out of my way to help people because I feel like it, and sometimes it comes at a cost, right? It's a trade-off. There's only so much time you can do. And other than Tata, I mean, he had always a giver. Right? He had nothing, but he'll still give. And so somehow I feel that he guides me to help people.
Right. And Tata then how about your kids?
Yeah, they keep me on my toes, right? And as you all know, we learn from them, right? And they all think that and I agree that they do know more than me sometimes in certain aspects of things, but they keep you on your toes, and I learn a lot. There's things that they bring. There's my son was going to a class, and he was doing something, and I peeked over and I saw that he was actually doing some chatbots for his application. That I was able to bring into EC side to say, hey, this is something that we should be doing as well. So there's a lot of things that we learn, but I also learn random acts of kindness. My daughter sometimes acts, very very kind to certain people that we see, and and then says, hey, there's something that I can learn from here, right?
Yeah.
So it's great to be surrounded by well-wishers and people like you, Muthu, and Arun, always call in just to check in, just to say, hey, how are you doing? No agendas and all that shapes us. And my friends, that I said mentioned from earlier, group of still in very close touch, and we all keep talking about things that we're doing. So it's good to be surrounded by.
I see a lot of messages out there as well. Everybody is wishing great success.
So I have some questions from interesting question. Any good lessons in managing partners? Many times partnership have strained relationships, right?
Right. That is true, right? It's it can be tricky, right? Because again, you got to keep it professional. It's sometimes difficult. So finding a co-founder is very important, right? For me, having a co-founder means that you have the risk of decisions is divided into two. Right, and you're able to brainstorm and things like that. So NextNav was a great story for us, that we used to brainstorm all the time and come up with a consensus on what we want to do. But we also had our own domains, right? Ganesh did all the business decisions. I did all the hardware. Arun did all the systems engineering, and we collectively came together as a group, and that worked well. But I also I would never wait for a co-founder, right? Is because you'll never find the right co-founder if you wait for one. It has to, if it happens, it happens. And if you brainstorm and say, hey, can we do something like this, and you pick people out that you want to work with and spend in the rest of your career with. So it's important that you pick the right person. There's always difference of opinions, but you have to overcome those and figure out a way to be fair, right? Is what is fair for everybody in the equation.
One more question. Does it work in ocean environment, depths of ocean, container shipping, etc.?
In the ocean, it does. So over water, there's the different frequency it can work. Doesn't work underwater for sure, right? So it's in the ocean environment. There's a reflection and multipath that also happens with these frequencies, and there's some absorption as well. But from a long range perspective, location will not work that way, right? But it does work on the sky as you're facing the sky. Sometimes when I used to fly in from NASA, I used to bring a receiver with me in the plane, turn it on to see how many beacons can I see. I could just see all of San Francisco 60 miles away, all the transmitters, right? So that's so it works beautifully that way.
That will be fun to test.
But
This technology is going to be in the mobile phones everywhere soon, right?
Sometime.
Yeah. So it is usable by mobile phones as well. That's one of the questions.
That's right.
It's just that not eventually it will start being used by.
That's right. Ipo mobile phones la pressure sensor vachu vertical location, right? Which floor you're in, they're able to tell, and that uses a lot of them are starting to use the NextNav technology for that. The 2D is coming. Right? That was one of the objectives of this fundraising cycle as well.
Got it. Very good.
And
I think
everybody said, so
go ahead.
We're almost at the time, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of comments I see. You could be a chocolate boy. You could be a son of every family that people are looking forward to.
Thank you for that.
It all comments from people. Yes, and amazing storytelling that you had. One of the questions that I had is you mentioned about linear equations and simultaneous equations and all that. ஜென்ரலா நம்ம வந்து காலேஜ்ல படிச்சது ஏதாவது யூஸ் பண்ணியிருக்கோமா அப்படின்னு கேட்டா ஒரு ஜென்ரல் தாட் பை பீப்புள் இது அது என்னதுக்கோ படிச்சேன் அது என்னன்னு கூட இன்னைக்கு தெரியாது அப்படிதான் சொல்லுவோம், ரைட்? மோஸ்ட் ஆஃப் தம், சம் ஆஃப் தம் யூஸ் இட் வெரி ரேர்லி, பட் யூ சீம் டு பி யூசிங் தோஸ். அன்னைக்கு என்ன படிச்சோம் மேத்தமேட்டிக்ஸ்ல எவ்ரி டே இன் யுவர் லைஃப் டு ஃபைண்ட் திஸ் ரிசர்ச். How how do you remember all of that, or you have to engage yourself to study?
Right. Always, right? So the kalvi karaila karpava naalsalanu solluvaanga that it's very important that you keep learning, right? And it's the only way to stay on top of the game today is to continue to learn. I don't listen to music and things like that, right? But what I do is that there's a big webinar overload, right? But even then, if I want to really listen to a webinar, then I put it on my headset and take a walk and focus and listen. And that's I've learned so much by listening to that, and I still learn, right? I still buy books that I want to read that are mostly technical. I don't read a lot of non-fiction books, but I read technical books, e-books, and stuff like that. And there's so many things that are evolving around us, right? The abstraction of technology is so much that to stay on top, to do better things. I'm thinking what happens 10 years from now, right? And these are all building blocks for those. So continue to learn always, like keep your eyes and ears open, and at the same time this listening and reading, learning, right? It may be related to your job, it may not be related to your job. And by the way, I've always felt that nothing, no learning goes wasted, and it's all application of the learning, right? What you learn from wherever, right? And the concepts of signal processing are applied in different places, and it's similar things like that, right? So there's always learning, and you learn to apply the learning, saying, hey, this concept, right, is so
amazing. இது வந்து நிறைய பேர் வாயில சொல்லி கேள்விப்பட்டிருக்கோம், but somebody who's close to me, right, very well known, doing this continuously inspires me. And a lot of people, when I talk to them, hey, படிக்கிறீங்களா, இந்த வயசுல வேண்டாம் அப்படிம்பாங்க நிறைய பேர், but that inspired. இந்த மாதிரி நிறைய பாட்காஸ்ட் அதெல்லாம் கேட்டுட்டு இருக்கும்போது, is there anything, any one incident that you remember, oh my, that triggered, அப்படி ஏதாவது இருக்கா?
Yeah, kandipa. So I listen to NPR, National Public Radio, and I don't like to commute. Otherwise, I'd like to listen to it longer. But கேட்டு வந்திருக்கும்போது இந்த மார்க்கெட் ஒரு ஷோ sometimes அதில் வந்து ஒருத்தர் இன்வைட் பண்ணியிருந்தாங்க. He was a professor at Purdue, I think, and they called him because it was the 50th anniversary, or no, 25th anniversary or 30th anniversary of the emojis, right? நம்மலாம் அந்த ஸ்மைலிஸ் போடுவோம் இல்லையா? So when we used to have a teletypewriter with the computer screens with the terminals alone, when we used to send emails, you only had text. So அப்போ வந்து colon dash smiley எல்லாம் போடுவோம். I do that too also sometimes. And so அவரை கூப்பிட்டுருந்தாங்க, நீங்க அப்போ கண்டுபிடிச்சிங்களே, இப்போ என்ன நினைக்கிறீங்க அப்படின்னு. அவர் சொன்னாரு, அதை ஏன் கேட்குறீங்க, நான் ஏன் கண்டுபிடிச்சேன்னு ஆயிடுச்சு. இப்போ பார்த்தீங்கன்னா என்னன்னோ இந்த எமோஜி கோஸ்ட் எமோஜிங்கிறான், அந்த எமோஜிங்கிறான், பூப் எமோஜிங்கிறாங்க அப்படின்னு சொல்லிட்டு இருந்தாரு. பட் it was a good conversation. அப்போதான் எனக்கு it triggered, hey, all these smileys and emotions, you essentially want to show emotions, And why not just take a picture of yourself and make that your emoji? So make your avatar and stuff like that. And I came home and I spoke to a couple of my partners and I wrote a patent on it, saying that, hey, can we make avatars and use that emoji? And automatically when you type, if I'm smiling, I take a picture of myself in that mode or in a good mode, and then put a smiley face on it and then send it out, right? So Almari, I came up with those ideas. And then I didn't pursue it as much at that time, but I saw that a couple of years later, Samsung came up with this emoji ideas and stuff like that, right? So if you keep listening to things like this, then something will go on to say, okay, extend this to say, oh, this is he's what he did, he's what he's saying. So what this is, so things like that. So random thoughts, but yeah.
Very good.
Okay. Sorry, one question on this. You sounded like achieved a lot of things, but it's not hard things anyway. You just it sounds like எங்களுக்குலாம் வந்து அப்படியே படிச்சேன் அப்படியே போயிட்டே இருந்தேன் அப்படியே இடத்துக்கு போனேன் we achieved this and we went to NASA அப்படி போயிட்டே இருக்கு. How do you feel from your end? I know you're studying அந்த மாதிரிலாம் இருக்கு. We see that it's very simple to do. Is it really simple to do, or?
Yeah. It's nothing in this world, as they say, right, is simple, right? Is everything to get to a meaningful point, you have to put the time, right? If you go ask Roger Federer, you watch Roger Federer on TV, right? It's like, so you make he'll play, and you see whether and you go try in the tennis court or an ball, right? And that's because it's practice, right? And the outliers in our book, you need to put, let's say, if you put 10,000 hours into something, then you get that's roughly about 8 years into something, then you get good at it, right? So I would say subconsciously I've always worked hard. I always kept on top of learning, and those things help. But if I take a step back and look at it, hard work can be hard. But if you do put in the time and work hard along with the right set of influencers around you, then I think it's in hindsight it'll look easier, right?
Very well said.
I always say happiness is a state of mind, and you need to figure out a way to be happy with what you do, and then just full deep dive into this without இங்க ஒரு கால் அங்க ஒரு கால் எனக்கு இது கிடைச்சதுன்னா இது பண்றேன் அப்படின்னு இல்லாம you just go in and put 100%.
That is a very important message for if you want to be an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah,
dive deep, and then put your step on and then move on. So முடிஞ்சா பண்ணுவேன்னு இருந்தாலே you lose that. And then the continuous hard work, that just reminded me back in 2001 I visited one of the wineries. அந்த உள்ள போன உடனே ஒரு சின்ன ஃப்ரேம் வச்சிருந்தாங்க, how to make best wine அப்படின்னு. இவ்வளவு சிம்பிளா சொல்யூஷன் கொடுத்துருக்கானே அப்படின்னு started reading it, and I really liked it. ஏன்னா அவன் சொன்னா all you do is take grapes and ferment it and just get the juice out of it அப்படின்னு போட்டிருந்தது. இதுல என்னடா பெரிய இதுக்குன்னு அப்புறம் கீழே ஒரே ஒரு சென்டென்ஸ், and then practice for over 100 years அப்படின்னு. That's exactly what he said. Yeah, you put hours and hours, thousands of hours into it, and then it becomes easy. Right. But for the people, those who see you, it looks as if you are doing it very simply.
Yeah. Very good. It is hard work for sure.
One last question: where do you see the world headed in terms of this technology?
Yeah. So I think it's going to be a very interesting place, right? But then if you like I said, I attend friends' parties and people to see what, and I'm going to talk to them as to what you're doing. Even last weekend when I was talking to somebody at a Diwali party, it was a small kid, but what they're working on, or not small kid now, 23, 24 years old, and he was working at a cancer research institute, and he was talking about the problems that they're trying to solve and how he's helping them. And mind-boggling what kind of research is going on into the medical field, what's going on in technology, how all of these things are coming together, space travel, right? So here is like top 4 or 5 things I would say that will happen, right? Or most of us, maybe 10 years younger than us or whoever, right? Where people like they will live to be 100 years is what I think, right? Is that'll become the norm. So prepare your retirement accordingly, so that you have enough money there, because the advances in medical field are staggering, right? And how they're going to solve a lot of these problems. So I think a lot of people will live to 100 years. We will learn to live through pandemics, right? And those will happen, but the medical field will keep us ahead of all of that. We will see in our lifetime, Muthu, we will see driverless cars. And most of us will be trading in Bitcoins, right? So that's definitely going to happen. I don't know whether my mom, who's 70, will get to Bitcoins in the next few years, but I think it's coming sooner than you think. And I would say the newer generation is very, very conscious about the environment, right? So we will get to net zero carbon sometime in the near future, right? So I see that also happening. And the last thing that I hope, but I think it'll also happen, is that some of us in this call will get a chance to go to space. We'll get a chance to. So space tourism will become a reality. So those are things that, those are things that I think will shape where the world is headed.
Excellent.
Right?
Another one. நம்ம வந்து அங்க காலேஜ்ல படிக்கும்போது என்எஸ்எஸ்ல பண்ண நிறைய பண்ணியிருக்கோம், ரைட்? திங்ஸ் தட் we didn't even imagine, right? ஏதோ ஒரு ஊர்ல போய் நம்ம கிளீனிங் பண்ணுவோம், some kind of activity, but those were roots for us. இன்னைக்கும் வந்து நம்மளால நிறைய கான்ட்ரிபியூஷன்ஸ் பண்ண முடியுது. we touched about the Vetrivel Foundation, right? Vetrivel Foundation ஒரு one-liner probably எப்படி ஸ்டார்ட் பண்ணீங்க? Because the core of work that you do is amazing. அது என்ன ஒரு எக்ஸ்பிளனேஷன் கொடுக்கலாமா?
கண்டிப்பா. ஸோ வெற்றிவேல் ஃபவுண்டேஷன், நான் சொக்கலிங்கம், Annamalai and Civil, we started Vetrivel Foundation to sort of bridge the digital divide, right? இங்க வந்து people who know Khan Academy, beautiful set of videos, and my kids also use it sometimes to learn some small concepts given in pocket-sized, bite-sized chunks, and explained very well through video instruction, right? And we wanted to see how we can take this to the masses in India, starting with Tamil Nadu, and that's how it started, right? So we're trying to take Khan Academy content, either translate it or remake that according to Tamil lingo and stuff like that, and deliver it to schools. Internet connection, there's different techniques in which we can deliver. So that's been generally going well, but it was slowed down by the pandemic, and it's starting to pick up again. And we're always looking for volunteers to help with those kinds of activities. It's both a technology base, a lot of curriculum is math and sciences, and then also deploying it in India as well. So that's the essence of what we're trying to do with Vetrivel Foundation.
Awesome. யாரோ இன்னொரு கொஸ்டினும் கேட்டிருந்தாங்க. I know your new company, Easy Site, is now busy, installing a lot of things, and then you probably need more people. First day, யாரோ ஒரு question கேட்டாங்க, why not hire somebody from Annamalai University?
Yeah, so we have people from Annamalai at Easy Site, right? My good friend Vaitheeswaran runs our Bangalore India operations, and another good friend Jay, who used to do computer science at Annamalai. He's our senior director of product management and customer success, right? I mean, Annamalai it's a concept more than anything else, I would say. And you learn from that, and you make friends for life from that. So we will definitely look into hiring more. So our website has easysiteapp.com has some of the openings and stuff like that if people are interested, and absolutely welcome to join the team.
Great. And then is there any opportunity for trainees or freshers from Annamalai?
Yeah, definitely. We can arrange some of this. We can definitely arrange some of those things as well, right? To make things happen.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Wow, amazing journey of little over 1 hour and 40 minutes.
So apologies if it took longer than.
No. It was great. I think that was a nice, engaging session. Thanks a lot for Muthu and Subbu.
Thank you,
those who are online, please do visit the auaa-usa.org and become a live member. By the way, it's a brand new site today. It's launched actually. We should have done this first itself. So it's completely redone, and reformatted. So please do go and visit. And if you have not become a member, register and become a member. And probably we may not be able to announce the raffle winners now because of the time, but we will send them their gift cards directly.
Yep. All I can tell you on that, today we had a record-setting, concurrent viewers. People are here. A lot of people are listening. So time-wise, ponade theriyala, Subbu.
Okay,
thank you so much. And your explanation to people was so amazing. Thank you so much. And then nariya registrants as well for the raffle. So we will definitely announce. Probably the people who have won will receive an email. That's the way to go. And thank you so much.
I would like to add one point.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for that.
Very much.
I would like to add one thing, but I think the folks, those who are watching in the YouTube, it's consistent over 50. At this point of time, it is about 58. So I just wanted to.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Subbu is very nice. I am really pleased to listen to the whole thing.
Okay, thank you, Professor Madhavan. Thank you.
Enjoyable journey. And I think it is very remarkable. And what impressed me most is how much satisfaction all of you guys are having now. You are having fun. And this is one of the best things I have seen that.
Thank you, sir. Such an appreciation coming from your end. Amazing.
Sister Vayala Brahma Rishi. Thank
you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We have been we are so successful because of seniors like Madhavan. So
absolutely.
So we are blessed that they're all guiding us and mentoring us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you
ends up our live presentation. Nandri Vanakkam.